Hello YouTubers! Today I'm going to show you how to make a shadowy orb thingy. I'm going to be using Jastic Paint Shop Pro. It is the older version of what is now known as Corel Paint Shop or Photoshop, not sure which. What I'm doing is pretty basic, so whatever you have is probably going to work. Okay, let's get started. First, we gotta go create a new image over here in the top corner of the screen. We want to make sure that the width and the height is the same because we're going to work with a square. You can use inches or pixels, centimeters or millimeters. I usually go with pixels or inches. Today I'm going with inches. I wouldn't do anything smaller than 2 inches or 2000 pixels. Just because it's easier to work with. Really, there's more space and you can really get into the tiny details. Also, make sure the resolution is set at 300 or higher. 300 is usually good if you want to keep the file size down and you also want to keep the quality high. Next, we want to look at the vector background. We want vector. We do not want raster or art media background because vector does not have a background. It is basically a blank background. And it's best to work with when you're working with shadows because otherwise the shadowing can get on the background. And it's just difficult to work with. So we're going to work with vector. Also, we're going to be working with 16 million colors. So make sure your color depth is not set at grayscale and is set at 16 million colors. I always work in 16 million colors like by default because I never know if I'm going to make an image black and white or in color and I just don't feel like messing with the settings, so I just leave it in 16 million colors at all times. Okay, now we click OK. And there we have a workspace. Over here you can also make it larger so you can focus on the whole screen, but as I'm working on it, I usually just keep it around here so I can move it around as I see fit. Okay, so now we gotta select our first tool, which is the Shape Effects button. Click the little drop down menu right here. You can see all the shapes that you have available to you, rectangle, star, and other thing, whatever that is, beach balloon, and ellipse. We're going with ellipse today. And make sure the draw circle button is selected. We don't want to do an ellipse and we are not ready for the edit mode yet. So make sure that is clicked. Make sure there's a check mark on create on vector because we want to do a vector definitely. All the other options up here are pretty much irrelevant. Okay, lastly we want to make sure our colors are both white. So just left click and right click if they're not both white, depending on which one it is that needs to be white, or both need to be white. We don't want to have a black ring around it because, well, we don't need it. We don't have to worry about it actually mixing in with the background and not being able to see it because, like I said before, there is no background. Okay, so starting in top left-hand corner of the screen, we are going to click and drag the circle down to the bottom right hand corner of the little box thing. And there we have a circle. You don't have to worry if it's not straight. Next, you are going to click the little arrow button that I was showing you earlier. This way you can edit whatever you put on here and fix it because quite frankly it's really hard to get it perfect on there the first time unless you're really good, which most people aren't. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little smaller so that I can work with it a little better. You have to be careful when you're resizing it because even from the corners it doesn't retain the shape if you move it around too much. I don't want it to be ovally. Okay, that looks close enough. There you have a circle. For our next step, we have to select our light and darken brush. There are a few programs that actually do the lightening and the darkening automatically, but I prefer to do it all manually just because it comes out different every single time. And you can have more control that way. So we want to make sure that the brush is a little larger than the circle. So we're going to move it up to about 400. Make sure the hardness is at 0, and the opacity, we're going to leave that down a little farther, about 60. Right-clicking, we are going to go over the first half of it, leaving out this half, because this is where our light is going to end up. As you can see, kind of creating like a half moon shape thing in the top left corner. Really, when you're doing it by hand, you just kind of have to play it by ear. You kind of do it the same way every time, but there are some tweaks you have to do when you get closer towards the end. I suppose you'll see it. This is basically how you do it. You just cover the whole thing the first time. The second time, you kind of go over the center diagonally, because the dark side is going to be closer towards you. And we can see in the little preview how it's turning out. Now that we have the stripe in the middle and it all covered in, we're going to increase the opacity to about 90, and we're going to minimize the size of this brush. And we're just going to start at the top right of the balloon bubble thing, and we're just going to trace around the edges until we get over here. Okay, and then moving the opacity back down again, we gotta kind of just patch it up, because we want this area right in here to be the darkest area, because this is the lightest area over here. We want to keep that 3D effect. So this is the part where you kind of have to play it by ear. You just kind of look at it and see where you think that the shadows should be. If you're having a bit of trouble with this area, you might find a Google image to inspire you that already has the shadowing and everything. What I love so much about these circles is the possibilities are literally endless of what you can actually do with them. They could be like Christmas ornaments, or to give you more experience about working with shadows. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good. I'm not going to do heavy shadows. If you did heavier shadows and more of a contrast between them, it would give it a more shiny effect, but today I'm just going to go with the 3D effect. Which is very unlike me, because I like shiny things. Okay. Our next tool that we are going to use is my favorite tool, and the tool that I use on pretty much everything I do. The Digital Camera Noise Removal tool. We click it. So here we're basically just trying to point out the flaws in the thing so we can kind of tell it what to do. So right here I see a kind of a line where I left out the darkness and lightness. So we're going to do that there, and then we're going to do one over here. So anything in the square is kind of telling it that it should smooth that out. Okay, we want to make sure that all of these right here are set to 100%. Because we want this thing really smooth. We don't want any of this to actually show up. Correction blend, make sure that is at 100%. You can put a little sharpening on there if you want, but I'm going to leave mine at 0. Quite frankly, there's not really much to sharpen. So, you press OK. Wait for it to apply. And you have a really awesome, shadowy, circly thing. From here, you can probably adjust the brightness and contrast a bit to make it shinier, see, automatically. Of course, you'd probably have to apply the digital camera noise removal again, but that way you just don't have to mess with it and do so much work. Lastly, I would like to point out that you can change the color. Most photo programs have the change to target brush. It might be called something different, but they're pretty much all the same. So you select your color and you just kind of run that over there. Okay, we're just gonna go with this because it looks like a Pokeball. So, maxi up. There you go, it's a Pokeball. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. I will be posting more videos sooner than I have been. in the future. And please subscribe. Thank you and good day.